Obviously, the big news yesterday for the Knicks was that Kemba Walker was going to his hometown New York Knicks. And
Welcome
today
home, Kimba.
we hear that Julius Randle is also staying with the Knicks. Chris, I want to get your reaction. Chris Canty, who's joining us on the Goodyear Hotline. Your reaction to these moves that the Knicks have made.
Well, Jen, I love the move of being able to bring over Kemba Walker. I mean, it's a low-risk move from the Knicks in terms of, tying up salary cap space and, the length of contract. And so I think it's smart to be able to bring somebody in that can share that workload with Derrick Rose in the backcourt. We know that neither one of those guys can play extensive minutes at this point in their careers because of the injury history and the health concerns. But, I mean, if you can get Kemba Walker to play 65-plus games and average 18-plus points, I think this is a home run move for the Knicks.
And you talk about, him not being able to – he's only 31 years old. At one point, we didn't think Derrick Rose would ever be able to come back from his injuries. Unless he had the stem cell last year. I think, 1 year removed, he'll have a complete offseason to train and get back strong. And he gives the Knicks a true point guard, a guy that can create off the dribble, a guy that can, create his own offense for himself and for others. We saw them get exposed, the Knicks get exposed in the playoffs because they only had Julius Randle, and, he ran out. And once they took the ball out of his hands, they didn't have anywhere to go. You think about Fournier and what he's able to do. I think this team is deep, and it reminds me of my Pistons team that had Tayshaun Prince, Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Rasheed Wallace, Corliss Williamson, and it looks like they may not have a superstar, but they got a lot of good players, and it's going to take a good team to beat them because now they have depth. And, I think that, Thibodeau and the crew has decided to also build by development as well, because if R.J. Barrett can take the next step,
okay,
Obi Toppin can take the next step. They're about developing, right? And we watched this happen because we just celebrated Dinwiddie and LeVert and what they're able to do. Well, they were homegrown and they were groomed and developed with the Nets.
So,
when
listen,
good.
I want to be very clear. I love the homecoming story, okay? I think a lot of people can relate to a magnetic pull to go back to the city that built you, figuratively speaking. You mentioned that he's 31 years old. He's coming off of an injury with the Celtics. But I still can't figure out where it puts the Nets in the hierarchy of the East, right? Because you've got the Bucks and you've got the Nets. Bucks are the defending champs. A lot of the odds makers are picking the Nets, assuming that their big three are healthy. But then who? Like, if we go down the list, guys, it's got to be like the Hawks next because they were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Now, I know they didn't make a ton of moves, but then you got the Heat, who we know made some moves, added to their depth as well. What about the 76ers? What about Chicago, who we know made a ton of moves as well? And I still haven't even mentioned the Knicks. Are the Celtics in there as well? That's what I'm trying to say.
Jen, to me, this puts them right on par with the Atlanta Hawks, right? Because Atlanta Hawks didn't improve, right? And that game wasn't. Those games were tough. Those games were still tough. And I know Trey, Ice Trey, whatever you want to call him, Baldwin Trey, whatever you want to call him, he took the next step. But now you have it. Now it's a fair fight, right? Those games weren't blowouts. Those games came down to the wire, and the Knicks just didn't have enough to close it out. So now if you add Fournier, who's going to give you buckets, you think that maybe R.J. Barrett's going to get better, and you think that, okay, now they have Kemba Walker. Yeah, I would say that's a lot fairer fight.
Well, Canty's over there groaning, so I want to make sure we get actual words. We get actual words from him. Canty, your reaction to what Bart said?
Bart, it was a gentleman's sweep, and the Knicks had home court advantage. I don't know that the Knicks are on par with the Atlanta Hawks, even with the Kemba Walker move, and then being able to upgrade at small forward, bringing over Evan Fournier in place of Reggie Bullock. But, I mean, I just look at this as the next best option for the Knicks. Like Leon Rose, he was putting feelers out there, seeing if there was, a disgruntled superstar that was going to be made available via trade this offseason that made sense for the Knicks. With all of the moves that he's made so far this offseason, it doesn't feel like that was going to materialize this summer. And so he did the next best thing, which is being able to bring back a cast of characters that the head coach and the staff have a certain comfort level with, a group that was able to be competitive, that got you to the playoffs, won 41 games in a season where Vegas expected you to win 22-23. I think that this move, bringing over Kemba Walker, re-signing Derrick Rose and Alec Burks and Nerlens Noel, to me, that allows your team to be competitive, play meaningful games in the regular season and in the postseason, which is instrumental in developing young players while maintaining a certain degree of flexibility with your contracts, because we're not talking about long-term deals, and a lot of those deals have team options on the back end of them. So if, in fact, there is a superstar down the line that does become available, those are very movable contracts, and you can make something happen. So I just think with the overall strategy, if you couldn't land the big fish, this was the next best option.
Yeah, and I still think that the NBA is more exciting when the Knicks are relevant. So obviously they're moving in the right direction. Playoffs last year, hopefully they can take that next step with some of these additions they've made.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.